My name is Rebecca Martin, and I'm the organizer of the Chicago Film Lover Exchange. Today we're talking about Wim Wenders' Paris, Texas, which came out in 1984. This is part 2 of 3 parts, and we are going to be speaking about the colors of red, green, and blue in the film. And I'll let Jeff get us started.
Okay. Well, what fascinates me about the use of green in the film is that it's almost always coming from a source of neon, and it has this kind of very specific kind of washed out, medicinal, almost like a kind of sickly feel to it. I believe that that's very much conscious and purposeful. There is a sense, like the neon light in this film doesn't look like neon in any other movie. And I know that they did something, like normally when you are filming neon, you wash it out so that it doesn't kind of overwhelm the rest of the lighting setup. But in Paris, Texas, the cinematographer, Robbie Mueller, who really deserves, accolades for his work in the film, specifically left the neon lighting as a wash that kind of colors every scene it's used in a remarkable way. That stuck out for me, definitely. The red and the blue also have very specific significance, I think, for the color palette. But I was really struck by the green and its connection to the neon and this American sense of, signs and communication. There are all these cutaway shots of flashing neon, signs being lit up. There's a real sense of communication that isn't necessarily being direct.
Right, definitely.
I've been thinking about the different colors, and I agree with you about the neon. I think it was kind of like anytime there was a sickness, or like when he was in the doctor's office, it was very green. When he first goes up the stairs into like the peep show kind of parlor thing, it kind of changed to green, and it was very like lurid and kind of like unnatural. So I started to think more about the color, obviously because of this, and I thought that the red really, there was quite a few scenes where he would be wearing a red shirt and Hunter would be wearing something red, and it seemed to connect them. And then I thought also that it connected them as a family, that color red, and kind of, I saw it as love or like passion, especially when Jane was wearing red in her little peep show booth. And the blue, I don't know if I have a theory about the blue, but it was more sort of like compromising, or that's my thoughts, my initial kind of thoughts to the color.
I really think that going with red, blue, and green, I found blue to be like the least overpowering. Like green is so strong, and red is very strong. Blue seems to kind of be the faintest color, and I have the strong association of that with Anne. I think Anne, really, the first time you see her, like her blue dress is like the exact same color as her eyes. And I think their bedroom is blue. I feel like she's in blue light more than anybody else, but it's a little fainter. It's not so overpowering. And I think I connect that with kind of just the sadness she has of giving up Hunter in a lot of ways.
Okay. Cool.
I kind of felt like blue was, me personally, I felt like blue was Walt. Like I felt like there were so many scenes where it's just Walt's face, and he has this bright blue background.
Okay.
And his car was blue, and there's just always blue around Walt.
I feel like,
and I just think that it's kind of his like sense of responsibility and taking charge and getting his brother back on track, and he took care of his child, and I that's what I kind of took from that.
Right. That's good. Yeah, I was going to say blue seems the most evident to me in the last peep show part, when on Travis's side, there's like a blue glow on him. And I think that's interesting because that's one of the most touching scenes. So you're right, blue is kind of like the calming aspect,
kind of
I
like
would
a
say.
sadness,
Yeah.
underlying sadness, calming. I think red is more of the passion, but I did notice that they used red a lot in the shirts and the things that they would wear to like connect them. And I felt that really connected them as like a family.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, and I also the landscape is like a big part of this film.
Most assuredly.
And so I feel like the landscape with the neon colors, it's just an interesting like how they come together. And the opening scene is pretty awesome, like when Travis is just wearing that bright red hat. I mean, what do you guys think that means, like the red hat along the western landscape? Any thoughts?
Maybe this is a little overly symbolic, but I kind of thought of the red being passion for one and its togetherness at certain points, but also maybe just kind of in the peep show scenes too, like red is kind of the color of sin. And so kind of like for me, I was thinking the hat is kind of like the sin and the guilt that he's carrying around with him in the desert. That's kind of how I interpreted it.
Wow.
I thought it was interesting because you have this sort of iconic image of this lone figure wandering through the West, this cowboy, if you will, except instead of a cowboy hat, he's wearing that other American icon, a baseball cap. So, and he's also dressed in a suit. So he's sort of like he doesn't fit a character wandering through the desert, and it's kind of, you know, you want to know where he's coming from.
I think it's interesting that he only wears the hat really when he's not speaking.
Oh, interesting.
I don't remember at what point we stopped seeing the hat, but I do remember that when he finally took a shower and shaved, I thought it was strange that he put the hat back on because it was so dirty. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what you would read into that, but maybe it's just part of his manic energy roaming the desert or whatever.
And
I don't know.
It's in a way, it's kind of like he took a part of his, I guess, passions or whatever. Like, when I see the red hat, I actually think Hunter. Like, I think Hunter is, like, on his mind in some way. Or at least I would like to think that. That seems to be the only thing he doesn't blank out. Because he remembers his son, I mean, but he forgets, like, everything else. So, like, that hat just symbolizes, like, his burning for why he's been walking around the desert in Mexico.
Well, and he's such an unnatural transplant in that opening scene.
Oh,
because
yeah.
He's wearing a suit and this hat that does not go with the landscape of Texas whatsoever.
Right.
And then further into the movie, he starts to become, to me, like more like a Texan. He wears a cowboy hat. In the Super 8 film, I think he's wearing a cowboy hat. He wears like cowboy boots. So it's I don't know. It's interesting.
Right.
But it really, for me, it's the hat is symbolic of like how he's not really supposed to be wandering around the desert like that. There's something like lost. There's something wrong.
Yeah. And also, it's interesting, like, all the like, motel rooms, there's red, like, red bedspreads and even...
Red roof.
Yeah, it's just like there's red with anything with the motel.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that Paris, Texas is based originally on a book of short stories that Sam Shepard wrote called The Motel Chronicles.
Oh, okay,
that
cool.
are basically these little monologues and vignettes about traveling across the American West and this sort of landscape that doesn't necessarily exist anymore, of these kind of mom and pop motels off of the highway or the main road with little, you know, rooms for the night.
Right.
And this sense of transiency and travel that is kind of symbolic of the American West. I think that is definitely part and parcel of, you know, each motel room kind of having a personality.
Yeah, that's so true. And also, it just seems like when they're in Houston, red makes me think of the McDonald's thing that Hunter has when he's just in the room or hotel room by himself. Like, we go through many different terrains in this film, and we'll get more into it in part 3 with the road trip stuff, but in Houston, it's, you know, it's like a city, you know, so just red really pops out because there's all these like darker colors. And I don't know if you guys noticed the mural that was on the side of the wall with the Indian. I thought that was kind of beautiful in a way. So
Yeah, Jane is driving a red car when she visits the bank.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think that's the only red car too. Like almost every car was like light blue, like the entire rental.
Except for
lot.
that red one that was right next to her. Like
That's
when
true.
they
Yeah.
had
When
to
they're
make a
following her
choice.
on the highway, yeah.
So many of them.
But you're
are just-
right.
yeah.
Almost every car in the movie is light blue.
Yep. Yep. And then Travis was like, I thought it was so weird about the whole car thing. Like where he was like, I need to be in the same car that we were with the bump on the hood. Like why did you guys think that was?
I think he was very childlike the whole
Yeah, he was in
movie.
the, yes.
And almost throwing a tantrum, like
he was
like a
very
child would.
childlike.
Extremely childlike.
Yeah. I think that's why Anne was so affectionate to him, because it was like her little boy or something.
They're making
you
strawberry
know?
waffles.
Yeah, exactly. So, it also, there's just some really good shots with a mixture of colors, like with the shoes. When after he like polishes the shoes, like the red and the blue, and then the boots, the brown and the red. I don't know. It is all very thoughtful. And my question is, what is Wim Wenders trying to communicate to us through these colors? I mean, is it just a part of the journey, or is there like a theme?
I think one of the most interesting, or the very first major color shot was the exam room where it's
Yeah,
green, but then
okay.
the doctor's lamp is only shining on Travis's face and it's making his face red.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that means.
Right. I know. I'm like, that's colorful.
But-
There's got to be some meaning here since he
Yeah.
uses the
I don't-
same colors.
I don't think there necessarily has to be a symbolic key like red equals fill in the blank, green equals fill in the blank. I think these colors are sort of maybe subconscious connections that
Interesting.
occur. There's something about the way that the sky is photographed all
Oh my
throughout the
goodness.
film,
Yeah.
whether it's bright blue or kind of overcast in certain scenes, or
Sunset,
the
like-
sunset scenes.
Yeah.
There's something about the broad spectrum of colors that you can
Kind of
only
like a rainbow.
yeah, you can only get that in like the American West or like the big sky country where they're in for the vast majority of the film. And I think that also affects the film, just like the way that the sky
Yeah.
changes colors dramatically can affect people's moods even.
Well,
Don't you think it was so like kind of American as well? Like the red and the blue is like so kind of almost like patriotic, and then the neon is like, you know, to me it symbolizes like American highway and being in the car and
Yep.
like motels, and so I agree with Jeff. Like I don't know if it necessarily is like this equals this or this color
Okay.
equals this, but it gives the movie a whole kind of mood that these colors really contrast that like great American West and the desert and the loneliness of like the Texas landscape. But going
Right.
across to LA, to me it felt very American, especially with the cowboy kind of connotations
and the random ass dinosaur.
you know, the Star Wars and the pickup truck.
And there was that weird kind of thing where he's looking through the binoculars and it goes up to the American flag, and
Oh yeah.
I was
That
kind
was
of wondering, like,
interesting.
why was that necessary? But I don't. I mean,
America.
It could be what,
Yeah, I don't know.
It is interesting that there's an American flag on this crane,
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
randomly.
But
I also
the
like
whole
the. I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
Becca, but I also love the shot in the home in L.A. where he's watching planes land with binoculars, and there's one insert cut where instead of watching a plane land, he's actually watching the shadow on the ground. I find that
Whoa.
a really fascinating insert shot too. Kind of, I see it as an example that Travis sees things that the average person doesn't or ignores, or he's kind of operating on a different level than the people around him. He's kind of lost, even when
Yeah.
he reunites his family. He's kind of lost.
But I think the whole Paris, Texas is playing on the American kind of,
Yeah.
you think Paris, you immediately assume Paris, France. The wife, Anne is French herself, and I'm wondering also if this was the director's kind of like projection almost. I believe he's German. So, you know, when you bring a German director or like a director from a different country into like to film something that isn't his country, there's going to be some projection on his idea of that country.
Right.
And the flip side of that is that a European director will see things and understand things that an American would probably take for granted. It's one of the things I believe that makes the film extra special.
Right. Yeah, I feel the same way, and I know this is referring to another movie, but American Beauty is done by a British guy, and because he's just obsessed with I read a little bit about him, and he's obsessed with America, and just that movie is brilliant, you know, and it's really cool to have an outside perspective. And I'm actually interested what you guys thought about the end on the top of the garage when Travis is just standing there in the green light, and then he's watching Jane and Hunter come together. I just wanted to explore that a little more because colors are definitely a big thing. Green, red. I don't know if I saw blue, but yeah. So
I think it was it kind of blue in the apartment?
Yeah, I think it
That
was. Yeah.
Yeah, again, the green, I just felt like it was almost like a sickness, a sadness, like he had to do something unpleasant. I don't know, I thought that the whole ending was very
And then when he's
sad.
driving away and he's got the tears on his, you know, and it's red on his face, but he's still got that green neon-ish glow, and that Ed scene, it's just, I mean, it kind of tears you apart. It's pretty emotional.
Kind of like, you know, the driving, like he's driving, he doesn't necessarily know where he's going, he's on a journey. The neon really symbolized that for me, like the whole concept of like going to motels and driving through the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And, like,
Yeah, I also I love the ending as well because it completely goes against the sort of sentimental expectation of the happy ending of everyone reunited and holding hands and walking off into the sunset. He's driving off into a sunset, but it's certainly not happy or except for maybe Jane and Hunter. But there's a sense of kind of resignation of understanding that the reality is far too complicated for there to be a happy ending, and I think that's one of the things that makes the film so brilliant.
Yeah, I agree, because it's not a perfect ending. Like, someone's going to be upset and sad, and it doesn't end in a nice little package with a bow, so...
Yeah, I know Harry Dean Stanton was actually pissed about the ending. Because in the interviews I watched, he was like, no, we should all be together. Like, that's like, you know, but they aren't. And I mean, I actually think it works. I mean, sadly, it works.
I think it works, but it's problematic. I think about poor, like, Anne
Oh my
back
goodness.
in LA.
It's sad.
You know, Hunter is a child. He hasn't really... I think he made a decision to go with his real father and meet his mother, but he is a child. He doesn't necessarily understand the consequences, so...
Right.
It's problematic, I think.
Definitely. Yeah, so we're coming to the ending now, but I just was wondering, so I guess the colors don't mean anything, which actually kind of frustrates me, because I want to be like, yes, this is the deeper meaning of the film, but I guess it's just an essence type deal.
I kind of, just like a final comment, I think that like, contrasting the two peep show scenes, the first one is overwhelmingly red. I think he's wearing a red shirt. She's wearing this bright pink dress. And he's extremely emotional. He almost can't speak to her. He's crying. He gets up and leaves abruptly, and then he goes and gets drunk and kind of regresses back into the person he doesn't want to be.
Right.
And then the next day he goes back, and the atmosphere is different. It's, you know, he's wearing something dark. There's a blue hue. Her side is very brightly lit. And he's almost emotionally detached because he's pulling away, and he doesn't want to see her face to face. He turns around, she turns around, they can't communicate, you know. And
I love those scenes. Those scenes, I think, are the emotional heart of the film, and I want to just say that the idea that behind a one-way mirror where Jane is basically looking at her reflection, and Travis can see her, but she can't. And then these there are these barriers to communication, not unlike the walkie-talkie. He's talking to her over the phone, and it's just it's a beautiful scene, and
Yeah, definitely.
heartbreakingly performed, and just really striking how these long monologues that both characters have are allowed room to breathe. It's almost like it's a very theatrical moment.
Yeah.
It's almost like a one-act play,
Hey.
those scenes.
Definitely.
They said
Go
it.
ahead.
So actually, I'm sorry guys, we're coming to the end now, but you guys did a great job, and I guess I'll see you for part 3. Bye.